Hi, everyone. Welcome to Luvafoodie LinkedIn Live. We're happy to be here on Monday, March 7th, and I have a very special guest today, and I'm even happier because I get to eat some of his delicious chips on the show because I'm going to describe for you what they actually taste like. But first, let me welcome Jonathan Marcus, owner, founder of Rose Sister Chips.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you as always.
Nice to see you. I feel like we know each other because we have been on LinkedIn. We have so many of the same mutual friends, and I was fortunate enough to win a contest that Randall Constant did about a year ago,
I
and
know.
the chips were the prize. And how did I know that when I opened the box and got three large bags of chips, that it would be only a matter of days before I consumed them all. And I'm not kidding you, everybody. Without guacamole, without salsa, I just ate them.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. So um, I want to hear about your company, how it started, the people who created it. Why don't you and tell me a little bit about the founders? I think they're your aunts or grandmas.
Right. Well, I mean, the recipe is my grandmother's, which she created in Poland many, many, many years ago. And, she eventually moved over to the US, ended up in New York, and had my mom and my aunt, who were the sisters. And when they were old enough to learn to bake, my grandmother used to bake the seasoning on Polish bread, and Polish bread, this particular kind, is very, very, it's heavy, it's intense. And my mom and my aunt decided it was just way too much work for them to cook and bake the bread. But they loved the taste, they loved the seasoning. And at the time, Mexican cuisine was up and coming in the US, and they tested the seasoning on a whole bunch of different platforms, and they ended up loving it on a flour tortilla that they baked. And that's the creation of our chips those many years ago, and it's just taken off, and we still have it at the family dinner table. We still pass it around just as we always did, and we break bread before the meal starts, and we talk about the day and what have you, and it's kind of our thing, and we love introducing it to other people, and it just kind of has taken off in its own right, and we're pretty excited. So as far as the ownership, I mean, officially, my mom owns the company, so it's her
Is her
thing.
name Rose? Is your mom Cameron? Everybody, I want to show it. I'm going to interrupt for a minute. I'm going to show everybody what this looks like. So, in a package, you get these large tortilla chips, which are baked and not fried, which I really like. So, they come like this in a sealed bag. You get three boxes in a bag, right?
You get three round tortillas in each bag,
Yep.
and we ask people to crush it in the bag and eat them as chips. Just enjoy the
Mm.
experience. Aren't they
So,
great?
everybody, before you tell us about your mom, I have to describe. Okay, so this is the original. And you talk about the seasoning, it's so flaky. And what I like about them is that it's almost like eating a pie crust that's seasoned. It's flaky, it's light. Um, the seasoning that you put on it, this was a family mixture that your grandma created.
You did. Yep.
And what is the seasoning?
It's impossible to describe it, but there are 15 herbs and spices that are mixed in there, and it's one of those things that you just have to experience to fully appreciate what it is, because you can't really describe the flavor. I mean, the predominant ones that are in there, like the dominant ones that kind of kick in, are garlic and onion, and then the mixture of lemon juice and vinegar. So, and when the lemon juice and the vinegar kind of mix and they settle into your, into your palate, it kind of kicks the flavor in, and it actually gets stronger as it settles into your palate. So it's kind of a really it's a cool thing, that I just grew up with, and it doesn't get any less exciting, 40, 50 years later. It's just a great little product that it's just fun to eat.
It's very fun to eat, and I know you suggest you can serve it with salsa, guacamole, which I've tried, but honestly, I like them plain.
Yeah, as do I. I mean, it really depends on your preference. So it's just so tasty by itself because of the flavor
Mhm.
palette, and the profile. But if you like to dip, or if you like, like artichoke dip or crab dip or salsa or guac, cheeses. I mean, you sprinkle it on soup and salad, and we use it as breadcrumbs. We'll beat the living hell out of it and sprinkle it on fish and meatball and chicken. It's like really kind of an amazing product.
It is. So, Marcus, when did you have the idea that okay, we have this great family snack that we share in our family? When did
Right.
and who decided, maybe we should take this retail? How did you come to that decision?
Yeah. So it's great, and I'm sure it's not a unique story, but it's fun for us that. So my background is 30 years in credit card marketing partnerships. So I've kind of traveled the world many times over, dealing with banks and credit card partnerships, and had a great career, and it was a lot of fun. But after 30 years of it, I kind of got the need to do something just different, and I transitioned working for the big banks and the big networks, and decided to become a consultant. And I did a lot of work for financial tech startups, um, and did that for 5, 10 years and had a blast. But really needed something desperately different, just something completely new to learn. And all my life, we would bring our chips to parties and events, and everybody, like without fail, everyone said you have to sell these. And very nice to hear, right?
Hmm.
And you thank the people and say, that's very nice for you to say, but you dismiss it, right? Because everybody's nice when it's free. It doesn't mean that they're going to pay for it. And fast forward 40 years, and my girlfriend and I brought the chips to a party, and once again, people said, you really need to sell this. Like, we would buy this. And I looked at her, and then we called my mom and said, well, what do you think? Like, we've been listening to this all of our lives. Why don't we try it? And we agreed. And the way to test it was we whipped up a batch of the chips. We brought it to a market nearby where we live in Connecticut. We asked the owner, saying, listen, we're thinking of selling this. We just really want honest feedback from your customers. Would they pay for it? Like, would they like it enough to say, yes, we would buy this? And the guy was great. He said, sure, I'll put it out and I'll let you know what they say. And that was that. Like, we didn't expect to hear anything, certainly not anytime soon. And at 7 o'clock the next morning, on the nose, he called and he said, we're ready to buy it. Right. And he said,
Really?
yep. He said, people devoured it. We love it. The workers love it. The customers love it. And they want to know when it's available. So at that point, we basically said, all right. And I essentially stopped my consulting work, and we scrambled and we found a co-packer. We got them ramped up. We designed the website, the packaging, the sell sheet. Within a couple months, we were up and running, and we were off to the races. And that was right at the end of 2018, and the pandemic started 3 months later.
So, Jonathan, I gotta ask you: do you make the tortilla itself, the bread?
We don't now. We outsource it. We bring the baked tortillas in, like the raw
Okay.
tortilla, and then we mix the seasoning. Well, now we have our own facility, so and we manufacture it all. We bake it. We package it and distribute it.
So you buy the tortilla bulk, and then you put the spread or the seasoning on it, and then you bake it in a big oven.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
it says baked, not fried. So
Yep.
when you tested it the first time, when your mom was making these when you were growing up, was she making her own tortilla?
No. I mean, at that time, you could buy tortillas. It's just easier to do that.
Okay.
Once we scale, we'll probably end up making our own, but right now it's just easier to buy in bulk.
Okay. Okay. So go on. I was just curious about that. Okay.
Yeah, no. And so, as I said, when we launched through a co-packer, which was great because, as I said, none of us are food industry veterans, right? So there's so much we didn't know, and quite frankly, there's still so much we don't know. But it was better for us to kind of outsource everything to learn how it all works. And they were great. They really helped educate us. But it probably took about 7 or 8 months for us to essentially outgrow their capabilities. And honestly, I just don't think anyone has the same passion for quality as the founders, right? Like, so,
Absolutely.
like we were one of many clients that they supported, and they just wanted to pump through, I guess, as much product as they could, right? So they could bill accordingly. And listen, that's their business model, and we get it.
Right.
So, but for us, we have a standard on quality and how it looks and how it goes out and how you service customers. And it's just we're much more comfortable doing it ourselves. So we wound down co-packer and we established our own production facility closer to home, here in Connecticut. It's a much larger space, so we have expansion room. The economics are just better for us on a holistic basis. While we now have our own staff, which you don't have at a co-packer, it's great staff. I mean, they really are a dedicated group of folks that we love dearly, and they appreciate the quality of the product. And it's been wonderful, really wonderful having our own facility.
Yeah, so, but it's super expensive getting all the required certifications that
Mhm.
you need to get the OSHA and this certification and that. I mean, that's a big investment for your company and for you as an owner to say, okay, we're going to buy this facility because obviously, you know, Luvafoodie, I have a co-packer, but there would be nothing for me to do what you're doing, buy a warehouse, bring in the bulk, spices, and blend them myself, and have somebody pack them up for me. And there you're eliminating the middleman. But that
Mhm.
would be such a financial, huge thing to do that I couldn't do it without investors. And now with probably somebody with a lot of money saying, "Here, Michelle, we're going to cut out the co-packer and we're going to go that." So wasn't that a huge leap of faith that you decided to do that, only being a couple years old?
Yeah, 100%. It was a huge leap of faith. And we decided as a family, like, do we really want to do it? Um, but that being said, our trajectory of growth has been kind of cool. And I think if we didn't have that proverbial proof of concept, we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't we wouldn't have done it, right? So we knew we had something, which we kind of always knew anyway, right? Because it's a family recipe that everybody happens to love. So, but now we've got the proof on the economics that people are willing to buy it. So we decided as a family that we were going to go for it, and we're self funded up to this point. We're at that point now where our process is still pretty manual. And even though we've invested in industrial equipment, we're not automated. And that would be our next step. So that way we can produce much more efficiently, and the economics work much better for everyone involved, right? So we can buy in much larger bulk, and we can pass that savings on to all of our customers and partners, right? So we can lower our prices, and which is exactly what we want to do, because we don't want necessarily to limit who enjoys our recipe. We want as many people enjoying it as possible at an affordable price. So unfortunately, these last couple of years have been a bit of a nightmare, right, with rising costs. And we decided as a family, listen, we can't pass those expenses on.
Right.
We have to eat them to maintain the economics of the end consumer. So, because listen, if we passed on all of the price increases for everything, right, like boxes and
Right.
ingredients, services, and on and on and on, at the end, a bag of chips would cost $15,
Right.
which is insane. So we just said, listen, we're going to eat the cost. And our goal, especially this year, now that the world is kind of opening up again, albeit slowly, but it's
Right.
opening up again, is we got to scale. We just have to scale up so we can, just change the economics for everyone.
Right. So, do you have a time frame as to what that scale up means, as far as when we get X amount of customers or this customer, we can then afford to buy the automation? What's your point of reference?
I don't know that we can really wait for that to happen, right? Because as far as the customers go, retailers and distributors and and consumers, I think for a company that's now just 3 years old, and we're approaching about 2,000 kind of retail points. That's we think we're pretty happy with that, right? But we've also been in conversations with some of the really large super retailers, and we look at them, and it's an exciting opportunity for sure, but there's no way we could service that, like absolutely no way, without automation. But we know they're interested. So knowing that, as a family, we've said, listen, we've self-funded as much as we can self-fund, right? It's been expensive. It's totally worth it. We're happy we did it. But the next step is really probably our first external round of financing. And we look at all the options, right? You look at, loans, and I think we're inherently just a debt averse kind of family. Just servicing debt is a little nerve wracking, especially with the unknown, cash flow. So, and I think we've started talking to some investor types and seeing what that market looks like, and we'll make a decision certainly within the next few months about which direction we want to go. But I think it's just necessary to get us to the next step, and we don't have endless resources available to us,
Right.
so we just need some investors,
Right. Well, when you get those investors, tell them to call me.
You're not.
I'm at a very defining moment that I unfortunately need to be more aggressive in that area, because it's definitely something that I need in order to do the things that I want to do, which is ultimately go national. So,
Right, and it's hard, right? It's hard without resources. And listen, we have a lot of mutual connections on LinkedIn, and I mean, I'm in awe of the ones who are able to do it on their own, right? The ones who have just been blessed with that kind of success. And I mean, to say I'm not jealous would be a lie. But the reality, I think it's unusual for someone to be able to do that.
right.
Especially in this world environment, I think it's very, very difficult. And I just think it's a little unrealistic. So, unless you want to trudge along and, just inch up, bit by bit, for us, I just don't think that's sustainable. Just because even though the margins are okay, they're getting squeezed, right, in this world environment.
Mm-hmm.
And we just can't keep doing that. And we want more, like you. We want to be more of a national brand, and
right.
we want national distribution, and we want to be able to invest in real marketing rather than these little strategic hits, which are fine, but not what we want. And then
Right.
there's, of course, global. We've been approached by international chains and distributors about getting overseas, and that's a whole other thing, right? Like in terms of the regulatory requirements and
Right.
packaging and things like that. So, like every little move you make, right, to even introduce a new product, a new flavor, is a whole investment, right?
Yeah, let's talk about your other. So we've got the original, because I want to let people know who maybe don't know about your products that you have. Actually, this is the one, the original, which you started with, which you described this is the original recipe, which is what your grandma created, the seasoning.
Exactly.
And then, and then last spring, or I want to say summer.
It's been about a year.
Yeah, you came out with the mesquite flavor, which is also really delicious. It it has the more barbecue flavor, the more mesquite that you would expect. Now with this flavor, I'm gonna open it up. I'm curious, did you take the original, this is what it looks like, everybody.
Right.
Did you take the original seasoning and add the mesquite flavor to it? Or did you create a complete, so there's none of the original ingredients with a little bit of mesquite added to it?
Exactly. So we tested, in fact, we as a family, and we asked some kind of friends and some customers to test with us different flavors. And we tried, I guess, maybe 7, maybe 8 different flavors. And a bunch of them, rose to the top pretty quickly in terms of interest and popularity. And some of those we have to kind of put off to the side because the production process of it is a lot different than our current process. And again, because we're so manually oriented right now, like people could not keep up with what the oven demands, I guess is what I'm saying. So some of those flavors are in the wings, they'll come once we automate. But the ones that we really kind of decided to pursue are ones that we could incorporate into the current process. So the mesquite was one that was really popular. Like they really, really liked it because it's just the mixture of the pepper with a little kick of heat at the end.
You can taste it at the end.
Exactly. So people really, really, really like that.
Yep.
And it's selling well. Obviously not as well as 120-year-old grandma recipe, but we're introducing it. Some of the distributors have embraced it. A lot of the retailers have embraced it. Consumers are ordering online, so it's great. Like that's all good. We have a couple other flavors that are right next behind it. But as we said, right, like when you introduce a new flavor, it's a whole new investment that you have to make, and we're just not there. We're just not there yet. So, but it's fun. It's great, and it's really nice to see even on social media where we have, a small loyal following. They're really, really dedicated, right? They're really engaged, and to hear them say, "We love the mesquite, and we can't wait for the next one. We'd love to. We'd love to be a tester." Right, and it's just a lot of fun to be part of that.
Don't be a tester.
I know, right?
No, and I think, somebody said, well, why don't you come up with this flavor of spice? I'm like, you know what? Right now I've got 14 or 15, who knows? I lost count how many spices. I'm concentrating on the 6 core, my 6 top flavors, gaining distribution there before I come out with, my next. I mean, I have other ideas, other flavors I want to come out with, but I think as you come out with new flavors, there's going to be still the top 2 or 3 that are going to do 90% of your business. So my advice to you is go slow. I mean, gain distribution with, get your doors that you want with these 2, and then launch a 3rd or 4th flavor after you've already gained distribution with, your number 1 and number 2.
Right. We've been blessed we built this business with literally just the one SKU. So it was
Yep.
the large family size, original family recipe chips, right?
Yep.
And that's all we offered. And we were lucky to get distributors to take it. It was really great. Um, so with the second flavor, it was a bit of a pit in the stomach kind of experience. We didn't know if it was going to be embraced and adopted. If the metrics work and, whole new bag design, will it fit? And, so far so good. But we would never broaden the offering so wide, so fast, right? I mean, one, we just don't have the money. So
Right.
that's just the reality of it. But two, like you said, I think it's more managed growth that we want. And I think maybe one or two more flavors is good. So we'll have like three or four altogether. And I think that's a good number to know if we're really going to scale it big.
Right.
Before we start introducing a whole bunch of like you said, 15, 20 different flavors like you see on the shelves. That's the other thing is that we're not a center store play. So, and we don't necessarily want to be. Like we don't want to get lost in a sea of other chip type products. We love being in the deli, love it, right? It's just the packaging stands out, the product stands out, and it's just great to see the velocity of turnover, right? And reorder when it's sitting in the deli versus in the middle of the aisle. So
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. You're a specialty chip where you should be with the artisan crackers that are in the deli. The
right,
artisan, yeah, that's
yeah,
not. You don't want to be next to the big chip guys.
right. Not yet, not yet. I mean, we're just not a nationally recognized brand yet. So I mean, we've got a lot of following, which is wonderful. A lot of retail points, also wonderful. But like when somebody says, I want a cracker, I want a chip, or a flatbread, that's kind of what we straddle, kind of those three product categories. People, the first thing if you ask the average person on the street, it's not yet Rose Sisters chips, right? It will be, just
Right.
not yet.
Right.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what distributors do you currently have? If I'm watching this and I'm a retailer, who are your distributors that you work with?
But we have a good handful of them, mostly regional so far. We're with Chex Finer Foods
Okay.
in New England. We're with Bizzuto's, which is New England Mid-Atlantic. We're with La Perry in the Midwest, and they're expanding southeast. They're probably our biggest and most engaging. We're with KeHE in Dallas, and hopefully we'll be able to open up some more distribution centers. And we're with Nassau Candy on Long Island. We just started with them a handful of months ago, so they're ramping up pretty nicely. And then we have some local distributors in Connecticut and one up in Maine, Northeast Specialty and Drinks. And always looking for more. So we'll see what the year brings.
So, who have you ever heard of Pod Foods?
I have heard of Pod Foods.
You might want to look at them. They do a lot of the West Coast stores.
Right. So that great you say that because we've been aching to go west.
Yes, you should. This would do great, like in San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Right. Our challenge is shipping. Shipping
Oh,
for
because
us,
of the cost of goods to ship.
the cost to ship is out of control for us. The more west we go, we're light and bulky, which logic would think it would be cheap, but in fact it's quite the opposite. When you look at the cube and the dimensions of our pallets, they're very, very light. You can't stack on top of them.
Right.
And as a result, where you can pack a heavy pallet and it only costs a few $100 to ship coast to coast, it costs us almost 2,000 to ship a pallet, which is more than the product. So
Right.
clearly those economics don't work on a pallet by pallet basis. So what we're trying to explore now is how do we ship a truckload west? Because once I have a truckload, the economics are much more favorable, and it makes much more sense for us.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Jonathan, have you gone to food service so you can, like, say I'm an upscale restaurant and restaurants can buy this and serve it with on their tables, their
Yeah,
breadsticks or
right. So we actually have a great restaurant in Georgia that does that, and they move through a crazy amount of product. We also are getting very, very popular at vineyards and wineries,
I saw that.
which is really cool.
Great.
But they are buying wholesale retail packaging, right? So we're not selling in bulk boxes. And the reason for that is because we don't know how it will travel. And we haven't really tested it. I don't know that we've got a huge demand for it yet. Um, but at this stage, I think we're still expanding into the kind of the retail markets, right? Rather than
Okay.
traditional food service. We're not against it. I just don't. I think there's still so much unknown. We don't have answers yet.
So you are the main person in the company. I mean, I assume your mom and your aunt aren't out selling. I mean, they're
Yeah,
owners, but do you have
yeah.
other salespeople? You have people that are working in the plant, but besides you, who else do you have other, like a VP of sales or how
No,
are you?
we're pretty thin. So mom is the owner of the company. Um, she obviously up there in age, still very very feisty for her age,
You could
and
have had her on.
yeah, she's not into the technology side of things, but I don't know that that would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, but she is involved. She knows what's going on a day-to-day basis. So, in any major decisions that get cleared by her before anything happens. As far as the operations, myself and my girlfriend are kind of in charge of that. We just brought on a salesperson.
Okay.
He's going to start ramping up. And then complementing that, of course, is a network of brokers across
Your
the
brokers. Okay.
we do. Some more engaging than others. I think all emerging brands like us and yourself, we kind of go through different brokers, right, to find the right relationship that can actually push that needle forward. Um, so we've gone through a number of them in almost all the regions of the country.
But
And
offline, send me an email of who you recommend because to be honest with you, I've never used a broker.
oh, have you not? Oh, well, good for
No,
you.
I'm doing everything.
Good for you. I think for us, I think it's very hard for us, right? For a number of different reasons. One, we're not established CPG people, so we don't really have a deep network of befriended contacts. So cold calling is hard, right? And it's a time consuming thing that I just don't know that we have the bandwidth to do that. So we kind of need the brokers.
No,
Uh,
brokers are great. Yeah,
well, they can be
they
great.
can be.
They
Yeah.
can be, right? So the great ones are in fact great. The not great ones are in fact not great. So we need to keep building those relationships and finding the ones that, like I said, will just help us progress. Um, with this first salesperson coming on board, if that model works, then it just makes sense to continue building that up, right? And having people on the ground in different regions that we want to penetrate. So we'll start with him and we'll see how it goes. And I think we have pretty high expectations, and I think he has high expectations. Anyone that loves the product, it's an easy sell, and he loves the product, and he's a consummate salesperson. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Did you do any food shows in the last? I know last year they were pretty much all canceled, but now like Expo's open, Fancy Food
Yeah.
Show. Have you done any?
We haven't. We did the virtual ones, and our first in-person show is actually La Perry at the end of the month. So we're heading out to Detroit. It's a mighty big show. Over the last couple of years, as you said, just with the shows being canceled, we decided to kind of reallocate the money that we would have invested in the in-person shows into different um, kind of direct-to-consumer initiatives. So we tried those out, see how it went. They went great. They were expensive, but I think worth it. And now that the shows are kind of coming back, we need to decide as a family if we want to kind of let that tide come back and put the money back into those shows, or do we continue building up the D2C and the distributor shows? So I don't know that we've decided that yet. I haven't actually spoken to anybody that went to the show in person to see if it was worth it. The Fancy Food and
Yeah.
Expo West. So I guess we'll have those conversations and we'll decide. I certainly hope they come back, right? They're just great engagement and being face to face with people. It's just a wonderful venue.
Right. You might want to consider the Fancy Food Show in the summer because that's right in New York. That's right in your backyard. So
Right.
you would
Yes.
have, yeah.
Well, we did that the summer of 19.
Okay.
That was our first in-person show ever, and it was it was wild. It was great.
Yeah.
It was really a great thing. So if it comes back the way that it was, right? Because I think the last iteration of it was a portion of the Javits, which is just weird, right?
Yeah.
Because it was such a massive show,
Right.
and then to have it like in one wing, it didn't feel right for us. So if it comes back and it takes up and it becomes massive again, we'll be there.
Right. And the whole sampling too. I mean, I've been to Fancy Food Show and it was all about I don't know if you went before COVID, but it's mounds of cheese and the whole international, and it was really a fantastic eating show, especially if you love to eat. And so now it's completely different. Everything's packaged and it'd be pretty hard to put your chips in a trial size.
It is.
I mean, it ended up being probably all crumbly and you lose the whole effect. So it's challenging.
Right, and it's critically important for us to sample
everything. I mean, Jonathan, whenever you have a new product, whether it's a spice or a chocolate or ice cream, it's all about getting that person to taste.
Exactly.
Because nobody's going to buy anything without tasting it, unless it's word of mouth. Unless somebody says, "Go to the store and buy this," buy this bag of chips. Or let's see, do we have a question here? Let me see. It says trade shows have to come back. You have to taste it in judgment. Yeah, that's Charlie Banks. Hi, Charlie. Yes, I hope they do come back. In fact, I was just at the National Grocers Association in Las Vegas this past week, and there were very, very, very few food vendors. It was not what I expected. It was almost all technical companies, like apps and optimization for stores, and it's not what it used to be. The National Grocery Association used to have tons of food and tons of beverages, and it was I don't know if it was because of COVID, but it wasn't what it was used to be at all.
So and that's what I mean. So if it comes back, we'll be there, right? Because we really need people to taste it. I mean, we're excited about La Perry because that's in person and sampling. So and then the markets themselves, the retailers, they're starting to open up and sample again, which is great.
Right.
Even if it's passive demoing, that does wonders for us and
absolutely
there's product off the shelf. So as soon as the world can get back to that point, the better for all of us.
Absolutely. So Jonathan, where can people buy your product? I know they can go to your website. I'm just looking at the time.
They can.
I didn't see you on Amazon.
We're not yet on Amazon. That's another one of those brain spinning things that I haven't quite figured out. We've spoken to a lot of different consultants and other brands that sell on Amazon.
I sell on Amazon.
Yeah, and I'm having difficulty, one, getting a consistent story on how it works, and the economics are slightly intimidating. Um, and I guess I'm just having trouble getting my arms around it. We have a lot of people asking us to go on Amazon. For us, in the past, I guess there was a reseller, so someone who bought product wholesale from us and then sold it on their own on Amazon. But what they did is they sold individual bags, and the way Amazon packed those bags was not great. So all of the bags would show up basically crushed to the consumer. So if we were to decide to go onto Amazon ourselves, I think what we would do is what we do through our own website and sell bundles. So that way we can pre-package them the way that we want them pre-packaged to protect it.
And you could do the fulfillment too.
We could do the fulfillment, but I guess the way that it works on Amazon is that you rank lower if you do the fulfillment versus them.
Yes.
And if we decide to do Amazon, I think we do it with the expectation of scaling up awfully fast. And we know there's a market for that for us because we did a promotion through Good Morning America's online asset.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, and that was very, very cool. That was our first direct-to-consumer initiative. They actually wanted us on the show itself, but the requirements were far in excess of what we could handle. So at that time, at least. So the online promotion was great, and we sold out, what our budgeted amount was in like a week and a half. So that was great.
Was that GMA's Steals and Deals, Tori?
Yeah, Tori.
Yeah. So you basically had it. I've looked into that. You had to give it away. You had to.
Well, it was the combination of the discount that they require combined with you covering shipping. So those two together at that time was basically a break-even proposition for us, which is fine. Honestly, I mean, we saw it as an investment into brand building and testing the direct-to-consumer channel. So it worked out fine. Would we do 20,000 units, at that? Probably not until we've scaled. But, Amazon, if we can scale everything up and get to that next level that you and I were talking about, the economics are much more favorable for us. It allows us to reduce our pricing because we're buying greater quantities, and that's where we want to get. And I think Amazon can help us there. I think GMA can help us there. I think we've done a bunch with influencers getting our name out there, and we'll keep doing that. And all together, the consumer side and the wholesale side, I think that we'll really get to that next level this year.
Are you on Mabel or Fair?
We are. In fact, we're on Mabel, Fair, Abound, Create. We're one of the highest resale brand on Mabel. And Fair is a little more new to us. The economics are a little different, right? Their model is a little different, but we're growing on that too. So I think as far as those platforms go, as they evolve, I think they will continue disrupting, kind of the old world distributor market. I think it's critical to be part of those platforms.
Yeah, I agree. So if I'm a viewer right now and I want to order your chips, is it the best place to go is your website?
It is. Yeah.
Is that the only online place I can go?
No, it depends if you're wholesale. I mean, wholesale, as we talked about, you can go through those Naval and Fair platforms. As a consumer, the searchable map that we have on our website is intended to tell people where they can go. Hopefully, there's a local market, and if there isn't, then through the website is
Through
definitely
the website. Okay.
yeah.
Have you
That's
considered going on Walmart.com?
yeah. I mean, we would go. Yeah, we would absolutely. I just be honest with you, we just don't know where to go. To get on there. But we would consider it, sure.
Are you on Range?
We're on Range Me on the basic level. I think it's been a while since we looked at the subscription levels for those. I thought they were a little out of our price range at the time. Plus, I don't know anyone, not to say that they're bad, because I'm sure they're excellent. I just haven't heard anyone personally have wild success with it. And given the stage that we're in, and given that we're self-funded, we just really need to be pretty careful on where we burn cash. And I just don't know that Range Me would have that payback. I could be wrong.
I recommend. From my perspective, I am in the premium. I recommend it. It's opened doors for me.
Has it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've done it now. First year when you're just basic and you can't communicate with any retailers, you might as well not even be on it.
Right.
I mean, really. But if and it's worth the money, and the submissions that you can apply for and the different opportunities come to you. You hear about them. It's a yearly investment, but I would say it's something that if you can plan for, I think you'd have some success.
Okay. How long, if I could just ask, how long have you been on Range Me?
Oh, here's Charlie asked the question. Yes, I'll tell you that. I've been on Range Me for 2 years with the premium. This is the second year.
The second year, and it's
The first
open.
year, not the first year. I didn't pay for premium, so it was like, oh, it did nothing for me.
Right.
But the first year it did, and now the second year it has, and it's gotten me distribution. It's gotten me submissions that. I mean, you asked me one. How did I get on Walmart.com? Because of
Yeah.
Range.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, quick question, and then I think we need to wrap it up. Charlie wants to know, do you plan to introduce any new products such as dips to complement your chips?
I don't think that's really our plan, just because that's a completely different production process, and the way we don't have either the space or the setup or the knowledge, quite frankly, to do it. One thing that we did and are contemplating is expanding kind of the product lines. So while we'll continue introducing new flavors of the chips themselves, we are considering the idea of creating like a condiment of the original flavor. We actually tried it like, with sandwiches, and it's pretty good.
Like a relish? Like a
Like
relish?
almost like a yeah, like a relish or like a spread, right? And then also breadcrumbs. I think we've had just so much positive feedback on people using the chips as real breadcrumbs, and with the breadcrumbs being kind of boring out there, I think it would be a pretty neat thing to offer, and really diversify our offerings ourselves. So those are the things I think dips and spreads, rather than us creating them, I think we might look to partner.
Absolutely. Co-brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To do kind of a co-brand offering, promotion, and I think that would do well.
Yep. I totally agree. Yeah. You can't, I mean, that's something that I've considering too. You can't be in every space, nor do you want to. I mean, if you're, it's just not feasible.
It's really hard.
Yeah,
It's really. I mean, as a startup, you're already stretched thin, right? Like
absolutely.
there's just so much you can do at one time, and we're pretty thin.
Yeah. No, I always say there's only two hands, there's 2 feet, there's so many hours in the day, and I'm maxed to the most. So,
Right.
But if you co-branded with a company that say was a dip maker and you put your name on it along with their name or your ingredients, they already have the distribution where they're selling their dips. They already have the capabilities of producing the dips.
Right.
Why wouldn't you go that route versus trying to create a dip yourself?
Right. Yeah, and try to create those channels that are already existing.
Exactly.
Piggyback off each other, and I think there's just enjoyment to be had with that model.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for being a guest, Jonathan. It was my pleasure. It's always my pleasure to taste and eat your chips. I have to say, I can always be a sampler, an influencer. Count me in. Um, Next week, I want to plug somebody very, very special. We are going to be lucky enough to have Michael Ray. He's from the Smile Project. You probably have you seen Michael on LinkedIn?
I think I have.
He's on there. He has a daughter named Maddie,
Mm-hmm.
and he does so much good for LinkedIn. And he's such an inspiring human being. What he's done with the Smile Project. I didn't know if he'd be a guest of mine because he actually has his own show. He does a lot, and so I was very honored that he said yes. Part of my goal every week is to add inspiring people, encouraging people, entrepreneurs such as you, but not everybody just in the food space. If I feel that there's somebody out there that is making a difference in bettering people, bettering themselves, helping others, I want them on the show. So for
Absolutely.
anyone, yeah. So anyone who's watching or listening, if you think that you would be a great guest, you have something to share, please contact me. I'd love to hear from you, and it's all about touching the lives of others and helping others. And can't do it more than on LinkedIn, which is a fantastic platform. And I think Jonathan and I are very big on LinkedIn, and it's we've made our own LinkedIn family and our LinkedIn friends, and we like
Fantastic.
LinkedIn a lot. So
Yeah, and you've done a wonderful thing with your LinkedIn Live. So, I appreciate you inviting me. It's an honor to have been here, but I just enjoy our friendship.
yes,
We can talk forever. So,
I know. And the funny thing is that someday I want to meet everyone in person, because I feel like I know some of you people on LinkedIn more than I know my friends anymore because I spend, I don't have time to go out like I used to before I started Luvafoodie. So at least when I'm on LinkedIn, I can be multitasking and I can still check in and get a hi or,
exactly.
I am from somebody not feel quite so isolated and alone.
Right. But
So
yet another reason for the shows to come back, right? So we can actually meet everybody in person, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Here on LinkedIn. So, but thank you again, Michelle.
You're welcome. You've got a great product. I have to tell everybody, I wouldn't endorse something if I didn't, first of all, consume it and believe in it. And I love your chips. So everybody go to rosesisterchips.com. That's what it is, right?
Rose
Yep.
Sisters, two
Rose
sisters.
Sister. Yep. And order them. And you'll get them soon. And, a great gift to bring to somebody's house, too, because
Exactly right.
um, a nice a bottle of wine or whatever. These are kid friendly. Just good to have on hand in case you go into somebody's house. So
Exactly.
thank you, and I will see everybody next Monday at 4 o'clock Central Time.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Jonathan. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Michelle.